Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics, and this is the FN Reflex XL. First thing, of course, to get out of the way, I am on FN's pro staff, so this is not a review, it's just an informational on the gun, telling you guys how I feel about it from a more subjective standpoint. So this won't be your normal 2,000 round review, just kind of getting into the feels about it. So not too long ago, FN released the Reflex, which is a subcompact or a micro 9mm pistol, double stack magazines with a standard capacity of 11 rounds, internal single action, optic ready, cold hammer forged barrel, and pretty good little gun. But for me, and this course we're talking about subjectivity, for me it's a little too small. And I generally don't get into comparisons, especially in a video like this, but it is worth mentioning there's a lot of guns in this category and they all behave slightly differently. So when you try to make a gun this small and you start factoring in that you want as much capacity as possible, you may have to make compromises in ergonomics or design in some places to get what you want. With the smaller version of the gun, I was still getting a Glock compatible light profile, so I could still run my stream lights or whatever lights were compatible for this size of gun, like your Glock 43Xs, 48s, so on and so forth. And then I have FN's optic mounting system, which is one of the best mounting systems on the market, but a little bit too small for me. I generally carry a full-size handgun anyway. I carry a Glock 45 with a comp. That's my pretty much 90% of the time everyday carry. The only time I generally gravitate towards guns of this size is when I'm teaching open enrollment defensive handgun classes where students might be bringing them. So if I'm on the line and I see that 8 or 9 of the students are running like a 365 or a Hellcat or something like that, I'm going to switch from my everyday carry to a smaller profile gun like a 365 or a Hellcat or something like that, because students should be taught the processes, the concepts, the principles, the techniques, the fundamentals with a gun that's very similar to theirs if you can help it. I prefer larger guns. Now, this particular size profile in the Reflex XL is a larger gun, but it's still a small gun, and it's one of those guns that fits in that category, kind of like the macro, and there's some other guns that fill that role well, that they're small, but they're also big. So overall size profile of this gun is very similar in profile to the FN 509. It's just thinner. Has a reduced capacity because of that, but it is a larger gun with a, again, fantastic optic mounting system. I've got slightly longer barrel length, and I've got increased capacity magazines. On the XL, my standard capacity is 15 rounds, and I can get spare magazines. My reload is going to carry up to 18. Of course, one thing worth mentioning about this gun is the trigger, and because FN has arguably, deservedly taken some flack in the past on the way their triggers perform, the internal single action only, internal hammer single action only trigger on this thing is fantastic. It reminds me a lot of the trigger that's on the 502, their 22 caliber version of the 509. Carrying over same optic system from the Reflex to the Reflex XL. On this particular gun, I went with a SIG enclosed Romeo X. I like this optic a lot. It's a very small profile, and I don't get stuck having to make a compromise on my optic size just because I need to use an RMSC footprint. Now it's going to come with standard height sights, so you're going to prefer an optic such as the Romeo X, or like on my Reflex, I have an EPS. Those optics are going to still be able to give you your iron sight picture if you want it. Another issue and not necessarily an issue, but something that people are definitely going to be bringing up is you get into these smaller frames and you often lose that ambi ability. You don't see the controls as ambidextrous or even necessarily reversible in some guns versus some other guns. So I do not have a reversible magazine release, but I can order an ambi or left side, right side, and I do not have an ambi slide release, which for me is usually not a big deal, even though I'm a left-handed shooter, because I just manipulate everything from the index finger. Drop the mag there, drop the slide there. It's never been a big deal. Even on guns that have ambi controls, I generally go with that because to me it's a lot easier to actuate and control things with that index finger than it is to use my thumb. And of course you may be different. With a 3.8 inch cold hammer forged barrel, I'm getting really good performance out of this, and the increased size of the gun obviously increases the weight a little bit and takes some of the snap out of this gun. The regular Reflex does have a little bit of a snap to it when shooting self-defense loads, which is almost unavoidable in your smaller guns, but having a larger grip surface allows me to apply more control to the gun. If you have larger hands than mine, and I'd imagine mine are about average, then shooting defensive loads out of something like this, I can't get a full pinky contact grip on this, even with the extended floor plate on that standard capacity mag. So I would almost have to run that magazine the spare mag that comes with the Reflex, which is a 15 round with that sleeve on it, to give myself the full grip. And in that situation, I might as well just run the Reflex XL, which is exactly what I'm doing. This has quickly become my favorite Wonder 9, my favorite micro 9mm pistol. It behaves a lot like a full size. I can't shoot as fast as splits. I can't be as efficient with reacquiring that sight picture during recoil, because it still is a smaller gun, which means it still is a lighter gun. But it has a lot of behaviors of full-size guns similar to the 509. Already a lot of holster options available for this gun. There's already a lot of light options available for this gun, because like I said, like the TLR7 sub, they have one that's specifically for Glock models, and that's what's going to fit on this gun. Can't run a full-size light on it, unfortunately, and I know some people are a little weird about that. They want it to be flush with the barrel, which is what I've got right here with this TLR7X sub. I carry appendix, so the length of the gun isn't as big of a concern. My concealability issue is more just overall presentation and ride height than it is length of the gun. And some people who carry hip, kind of the same deal. Printing is usually not the length of the firearm, that's more of a comfortability issue. This gun carries very well, which is super subjective based on holster and body type. I get that, but just performing with it and using it in my everyday practice or my specific practice getting ready to teach classes, I find that the ergonomic placements on this gun are very similar to the 509, which means my reloads are nice and smooth. Generally with guns this small, especially if I'm running like one of these, I've got to compromise my grip a lot to get my fingers out of the way to get this gun reloaded. So I'm almost always, even on smaller guns, going to gravitate to a larger grip, so my fingers are flush against the bottom of the toe and the heel there. So even if I'm reloading a standard capacity mag, I'm never going to pinch or make contact with inserting on that gun regardless of how I'm reloading it. And I think that for FN, the XL profile for that regard is very good, because it gives me, anyway, because again, hand sizes are different, it gives me just enough placement on the gun to keep my fingers out of the way when I'm trying to manipulate things, which keeps my reloads pretty smooth. With that single action only, it's a single action only, but it's a long pull, and they're quoting 4.5 to 5.5 on the trigger press. It does not feel like that at all. Mine, I put it on the trigger meter and it's breaking at 4.3. Breaking between 4.3 and 4.6, but it doesn't feel like that because it's single action only, even though it does have a longer travel, and it is a curved trigger, which is a departure from your traditional flat face or slightly curved triggers that you see single action only, like 1911s and such. Trigger's fantastic, and I would highly encourage you to go to a local range that rents guns, see if they have one of these, and go ahead and check it out, because I've got some other guns in that Micro 9 category that I like, but they're all probably just going to sit in the safe now, because this thing is providing the size profile, the ergonomics, the controls, the accuracy, the optic footprint. It's really covering all the bases. And again, not a review. This is all completely subjective, but I think you guys should definitely at least go to a gun store and check this thing out, because it might be a pretty good fit for what you're looking for if you're looking for a full-size-ish but still Micro 9, lighter, easier to conceal handgun. Till next time, Aaron Count with Sage Dynamics, train accordingly.